So now what do I do? Well, I guess there's only one thing. There's something I'd like to know. Are you real? Can you feel?
Hi friends, I'm Prairie Vintage. My name's Linda. I'm an energy intuitive reader here on YouTube. I use spirits, my intuition, the tarot to communicate energies to you guys. Fantastic viewers. If you guys are new to this channel, welcome. I'm so glad you guys finally found me. For those of you guys returning, I'm so blessed to be here today doing your reading again. Today's reading, we're looking at what is the biggest obstacle or challenge going on between you and the person on your mind. Okay, so we're going to see if we could get an objective look at what's going on. And this may or may not be coming from your perspective. So it might be challenging to know, whether that is your pile or not. So I do ask you use your intuition so that you know whether that pile resonates for you, okay? Because sometimes we're not so sure about other people's projections or perceptions because they might be way off in la la land, okay, including your own. I don't know. And I don't know what we're going to see here, okay? But I did ask Spirit for 3 sort of piles here in regards to you and the person on your mind and what is the biggest challenge getting in the way of both of you guys. This could be anyone at all, okay? It doesn't have to be a love interest in regards to romance, but it could be, and a lot of you guys do come here for that. So if I do channel it that way, you can apply it to your person. Okay, if they are platonic or family member, that's absolutely fine. Just take the bulk of the energy because that's really what should be resonating for you. But don't force messages to fit. So let's take a look at the decks we'll be using before we pick our 3 piles. So we'll be using the anagram oracles, the general, the love, and the spiritual, okay, which is this card right here. And for the tarot, we'll be using the Rider Tarot deck, okay, traditional Rider Smith Tarot. So we'll use this for the 3 options, okay? Spirit, clear and concise message for pile 1, 2, and 3 in regards to the person on their mind and the biggest challenge getting in the way. Okay, if at any point you're drawn to any one of these, you can select from the timestamp down below. This is 1, 2, 3. I'll reveal them shortly. All right, so for option 1, you guys have the moon. Option number 2, you guys have the devil. Option number 3, you guys have the chariot. Interesting how we got all major arcanas. If you're drawn to multiple, it could be passing energy. It could be another connection coming through. Okay, it's absolutely fine to be called to multiple piles, although generally there's one that sits with the bulk of the energy. So if you have a difficult time, close your eyes, open your eyes, and whichever one you feel called to will most likely be your pile. All right, I will see you at your pick. Hello, gorgeous angels. Pile number 1, you guys picked the moon card for your pick. Okay, moon is Cancer, Pisces energy. I generally read it as both. Okay, so let's take a look. I'm going to put this right here. We're going to take a look at you and the person you came here about and what's the biggest challenge, obstacle going on in the connection. This could be anyone at all. I'm getting a very weird feeling in my throat right now. Okay, let's take a look. I have pre-shuffled oracle cards. I've not looked at these. Use your own intuition, okay? Because it's important that you lean on your intuition to know whether this is your pile. Because this could be coming from an objective look at different projections and perceptions that you and your person might have with each other that might not necessarily be known to you, okay? So we have guide. Light attribute represents the nature of the divine in life and in yourself. Shadow attribute places financial gain and control over imparting spiritual insight. And we have happy event 84, growth level success. Achievement, happy event, luck, winning, prosperity, good fortune. Number 3, type 3, the achiever, emotional center between appearance and authenticity. And we have avoidance, ego level 22, ordinariness, conformism, platitude, routine, dullness, monotony, and mediocrity. Type 4, the individualist, emotional center between lack and abundance. Number 4, so 22 is a master number. Peacemaker, diplomacy, and healthy energetic boundaries, divinely guided relationships. Interesting. We have the Venom, card number 63, or the number 9. And we have 61 with Uranus, Pluto. Okay. And we have Lead, number 20. And we have the Seeker, number 7. The meaning of life is to seek ways to give your life meaning, doing so with gratitude, patience, and compassion for both others and yourself. 7 is Cancer energy pulling through again for me. Some of you guys might have been drawn to the last pile as well with the Chariot. That might be coming up for you guys. Skunk. And we have Mouse. Some Earth energy pulling through, Virgo, Taurus, Capricorn. And we have stagnation, movement, even if slow is progress. And it says inactivity, standstill, and rut. Okay. And we have aestheticism with spiritual practice, ego level 43. Walking, meditation, simplicity, ritual, fasting, mindfulness, solitary retreat, willful deprivation. Type 7, the enthusiast, thinking center between pleasure and pain. We have 7 pulling through again. So 77 is a master number. Trust the fall, an adventure that arises from deep wisdom, trust of life, and trust of self. Okay, let's take a look at the other person over here on this side, okay? We have number 14, Moon and Jupiter. Interesting, we have the Moon coming through. So we have Cancer, Pisces. Jupiter is a ruling planet for Sagittarius and for Pisces. And we have happy event, 86. A new encounter, romantic date, face-to-face. Triest? I don't know if that's supposed to say trust. It says triest. Trist? Maybe trist. Flirt, suitor, new romance. Type 5, the observer, thinking center between interior and exterior. Okay, and then we have suspicion, 69, collective plague, stress level, generalized mistrust, tracking trend, lies, paranoia, hidden things, duty to monitor. Monitor. 6, type 6, the loyalist, thinking center between mistrust and trust. Suspicion. Okay. And we have student. Light attributes, humility and devotion to knowledge, openness to lifelong learning. Shadow attributes, arrogance in the pursuit of destructive knowledge, unwillingness to translate knowledge into action. And we have rescuer. Light attributes, provides strength and support to others in crisis, acts out of love with no expectation of reward. Shadow attributes, assumes that the rescued will reciprocate, keeps the rescued one needy. And we have the warrior, number 10. I'm seeing a hair over here. And we have the virgin's milk, number 40. And we have the lover, 23, or the number 5. And it says, with love, all things are possible, for love replaces your confusing doubts and weakens fears with faith in yourself and others. Interesting, because we had suspicion here. And we have the swan. Beautiful. Swans are all about grace, love. Right beside the lover, we have the otter. So we have some water energy here. Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio. Or should we put this here? Sure. We have desire. Harness its power to manifest dreams, not delusions. Longing, yearning, and craving. Getting that from this card right there. And we have being original, rehashing the past, envy and jealousy, comparison, living in lack, self-deluding, self-victimization. Number 4. Type 4, the individualist, emotional center between lack and abundance. Okie dokie. Let me sit with this energy and start to channel the dynamic here between you and the person on your mind. I'm going to refer to person A as the guide and person B as the student, okay? To make things easy here, maybe. It might start sounding like you and your person. If it does, just sort of keep track which one sounds like you. Okay. Very fascinating dynamic. We have the guide and the student, like I said. So I don't know if you're going to be guide or student, but A is guide, B is student. Okay, so you could fall on either A or B, guide or student. Let's start with the guide. So I feel like the guide person has been awoken up by this connection in a sort of a triggering way, or maybe a sudden way. Okay, when I use the word triggering, doesn't necessarily mean it's negative, but something that might have been dormant within person A, because I do feel like person A could have been avoiding growth and could have definitely been comfortable in whatever state person guide, sorry, I'll call it guide, has been in. And I feel like the guide had a very, like black and white way of seeing things as right or wrong, this or that, is very fixed and creating a lot of stagnancy. And I feel like they might have not have realized what was really missing from their world until they experienced the student person here. I do feel like the guide could have been somebody who's been quite difficult for people to engage with, whether they believe it or not, regardless of how quote unquote normal they might seem their life has been. I feel like it is a defense mechanism here that the guide would use to keep people out, because I think the guide likes to keep things fairly simplistic, and they might consider success and happiness just when there is no trouble. When everything is sort of okay, they consider that to be success and happiness here. But I feel like the guide's world has been sort of turned upside down here, and I don't think they were expecting their world to be turned upside down by the student person, because I do feel like the guide was being shown a part of themselves that they were neglecting and needing to develop or tap into and understand here, and not avoid and not shut people out. And I do feel like the guide is somebody here who might not still realize how much defenses that they have, but they do have a lot to offer. I feel like the guide is somebody here who does provide good service to people and could have good friendships and be supportive to family members here. I feel is very important to the guide, but I do feel like the guide sort of cuts themselves short, and it's like an energy of, as long as there's no trouble, then they have enough in their world, which is pretty stagnant. I do feel like the guide might have carried some in denial, and I don't know if the guide is still in denial. Probably not, about what they were missing out on when it comes to connections, because it'd be simpler for them just to maintain their boring, I'm using quotations, boring old world. And I do feel like Spirit has acknowledged that they've been missing out, really, at the end of the day, and that happiness can come in many different forms. And so this connection is giving guide an experience here to experience joy in different ways through connection. I do feel like guide is actually more fearful than they might realize, because there is an avoidance here. Okay, we have avoidance here. We have the mouse. And I feel like they might not really fully understand that a lot of their avoidance of facing connections and being open to exploring is really coming from a place of fear of being vulnerable and open, and then not having control in some way. And so they're safe keeping people out at a distance, being guarded and defensive so that they could keep the status quo. And so we can already see there being sort of a dilemma here, because how do you get close to someone who needs the control? Because there is a lot of fear coming with the moon. Now, the moon is representing two aspects of this connection. The moon is talking about fear when it comes to the guide. Okay, and the moon, when it comes to the student, is talking about how the student might be really up in their head, like in some form of like fantasy. And so I'm getting really from B, there's like an energy almost of not being very realistic, them sort of being in the clouds. Okay, and it's like the type of energy that like dreams big and might want for fantastical things and that sort of thing. But when it comes to dealing with things in the 3D world, it seems like this energy here of the student is one that might lack confidence in their ability to execute, or just an inability to come down to earth. So there's like this energy of like, yeah, it's like romanticized energy here. You know, like everything looks good sort of on paper or like in my head. But when it comes to reality, there's a misalignment here. And I feel like with the suspicion in the otter, I feel like the student here is like, and even with the student energy, it's like there's always this hesitation of trusting themselves to go and experience something, especially because it's safer in their mind to keep fantasy and story sort of alive in their mind and dream big. And there might be some comfort in that. Whereas coming back to Earth here, the 3D is something that might be challenging, experiencing growth lessons and challenges that we might rather not go through. I do feel like person B might use a crutch to keep themselves in this diluted sort of mind story fantasy, and they might really buy into it so much that they might have a difficult time really like knowing the impact of their actions in the 3D world and sort of blur those lines. I do feel like this might be stirred up from some sort of trauma. Okay, I use the word trauma, but I don't know. I'm not seeing trauma so much as I'm seeing the subconscious with the moon again, because I do feel like the student person B here detaches from reality almost as like a escapism. And so I wouldn't be surprised if this person was into like, I don't know, had like a fantasy life, you know, reading, maybe like video games, maybe like doing a lot of substances where they don't have to be in the real world here. I think they like to keep themselves disconnected. And I do feel like there's almost an energy of like a heaviness here, because I do feel if anyone's connecting to the student and is intuitive, which I do feel the guide most likely has an intuition, whether it's developed or not, I don't know. I think it's strong enough to pick up, because now I'm seeing the guide picking up this victim heaviness here of like this student having like a dream of something they could experience and be, but the reality be kind of different. And the guide wanting to bring some sort of peace or some sort of reality to the student. But I see the student almost pushing it away. You know, maybe not actively, but energetically, it's like they choose to be in this fantasy world. And so it's like they don't want to be rescued. They want to be living the fantasy story and keeping up that thing, you know, but I don't know that they know the severity or the reality of why they're doing this. But I do feel like there's a lack of trust in other people and a lack of trust in themselves, a lack of trust in them like performing and being able to confidently have success in accomplishing connection or dynamics, where it's like it might fail, I might be betrayed, it might not work, like all of this sort of stuff. But it's like I'll just mask it in an illusion of a dream state. And so I do feel like this student person would probably be okay with like painting a picture to the guide of some form of future or some beautiful romanticized energy that's really dreamy, very fantastical, in some faraway place. And so maybe the 5D is very heavy here as well, because I do feel like one archetype that's coming up for the student is the Knight of Cups. And it's very romantic, dreamy, this sort of thing. And I do feel like there's a softness with the student here as well. It's almost like an innocence and like it seems almost like a willingness, but it's also very detached and removed. And so I could see the dilemma here is like if the student is not willing or wanting to come to earth and make reality, there's no grounding the student. And so the student is sort of off, but also wanting to experience connection and love and some form of bonding or intimacy. So they have this world, but it's, I don't know, nothing but like a fart in the wind here, you know? So I do feel like there's delusions, and there might be like an intense desire here because of all of this heavy fantasy of something that is possible, but it never seems attainable. But it's like they might not want to admit it's not attainable because they haven't put the rubber to the road, you know? I do feel like student person B needs to get anchored, grounded. And I do feel like they might keep things very like big on one hand with the fantasy and the romance, but it's still very superficial in a way because it never graduates past a certain level. They won't let anyone sort of get closer to them than this. So it's like, it's kind of deceiving in a way. Because if you meet someone that's like talking a big game or seeming very dreamy or like there's more here, but they're only able to sort of, not only able, but the way they are producing is to a certain level, then it could be very disappointing or misleading or misguided in some way. And so the guide might feel like the student here is like leading them on potentially, you know? And it's like, why can't I connect? Why is there a big space between me and the student here? And like almost a need or like an intuitive voice saying they want to come out of the clouds to come to experience something in the real world. And I feel because the guide here is very grounded, is very much a yes, no, black and white sort of solid person when it comes to the 3D. I feel like they could be very grounding for the student person. And it's like the guide has an understanding that they could bring the student down to earth here, you know, be confident, because I do feel like this guide has lived in a very anchored sort of way, and that's their strength. So much so that I think it created stagnancy and a heaviness. Oh my goodness. I think their street cleaners are coming. Or maybe my neighbor's cutting the grass. I'm going to close the window. I'll be right back, okay? Yeah, and so it's frustrating. I feel the guide is frustrated by the students because there's a glaring disconnect that the student doesn't want to accept or see or deal with. And it's this lack of trust that things could manifest in the 3D for them. And I think the guide sees this clearly. And I think the guide was sort of woken up by getting them out of stagnancy, but it's like woken up by this, which doesn't seem to be grounding anywhere. So it could be very frustrating. And in fact, I feel like the guide might be, because we're seeing the venom here, might be, and the skunk, sort of getting their back up with the student, like maybe feeling betrayed, let down, defensive, and they might have experienced disappointment, because depending on where these two are in the timeline, it's like maybe B gave a false sense of what could be romantic or a place where they could go. And then maybe guide, you know, opened up, but I don't think it's in their nature. And they might have opened up to the student and then experienced a shortfall or like a disappointment or all talk, no action, and just sort of keeping them at an arm's distance. And it's like, how could guide go up into this space bubble where the student likes to reside? It's kind of very fantasy-like. And so if guide tried to bring the student down to earth, they might have been counteracted with this says veil of ignorance, but it's almost like not acknowledging, because there's a lot of this self-victimization, deluding sort of energy. They don't want to believe, the student doesn't want to believe that they have any part in why it is that they're incapable, again, of being more here. So it's frustrating here. And I do feel like the guide might feel only like an observer here, like there's not much they can do. They have to sort of sit and suffer here in some capacity, because it's like, if student doesn't want to come down, then, you know, come down from the space cloud or the fantasy, it's like, I can't do anything except for sort of observe. And now I feel like the guide might have little to no trust in the student if they've had a poor experience multiple times, for sure, where the guide might now be very defensive. It's like, I don't trust the student here to be anything other than all talk or paint a picture that they can't deliver on. Yeah. And I do feel like the guide feels empty-handed. And the guide initially, I do feel, would have been a good sort of partner shadow for the student person to learn. And I think the guide intuitively knew this, whether they see this or not, I don't know, but this was sort of being pulled from the subconscious. It's like their ability to be grounded, to be anchored, to be more solid in the 3D would have been a good example here for the student to be rescued in some way or to deal with this shadow. But instead of dealing with the shadow, it's sort of the student's like resisting this whole thing, you know? So yeah, let's just pull some tarot then and see what Spirit wants to say. But that would be the biggest challenge here between these two. Let's see, Spirit, what does pile 1 need to know about? What does pile 1 need to know about this connection? Anything further? Anything I've missed here? 10 of Wands in reverse and the Queen of Cups in reverse. Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. And the Sun, Leo energy. 5 Cups in reverse. Why is the Queen of Cups here? We have the 2 Cups and we have the Ace of Cups in reverse. And then finally, why is the Sun here? And we have the Knight of Swords. And we have the King of Cups. Look at that. King and Queen of Cups. Divine counterparts coming through. So very intuitive. Very spiritual here. I do feel these two might have a very, very strong tie in the 5D for sure, especially the energy I was feeling from the student. And even this guide that I think might have been very dormant here, but there's a lot of intuition pulling through with these two. So the 5D pull these two very strongly. But what I'm really getting now, Spirit sort of confirming, I think the experience was poor for the guide here. So there is this disappointing energy and this energy of almost like I'm going to surrender and give up this connection to the divine because there's nothing I can really do in order for there to be a coming together of this connection. And so I feel like if the guide was questioning whether the student had the same feelings, they did, very deep, but they have an inability to take action, which is what we were seeing. It like stays up in the cloud. Okay. Like I said, the fantasy land, it stays up there. And so like this King of Cups, it would need some form of action or confidence, like this Knight of Swords, to take action. And so Spirit is talking about this connection was in order to provide some light in both of these two people's world in different aspects. The guide, again, like I said, was talking about them thinking they were okay where they might have been in their world and having to see a greater joy and connect to greater abundance and not settle and not be stuck and know that success could come through with connection, love, and warmth and bigger abundance things, not to settle in some sort of way here and to see this, but I think it's been very disappointing experience for the guide. And so it's been darkness and shadow and a shakeup of their world. This I'm seeing Tower, with this Uranus Pluto energy. And so it's like shaking up that part that they were needing to work through. But they are headed towards joy and light because now it's like they can see and they can't unsee what they see. So there was an awakening. But I feel like student here is really being called to take action and to confront and see truths rather than shut their mind's eye or turn a blind eye here to truths. And it's like these feelings are true. They can't avoid, escape, or deny that these feelings exist. And so there's a truth that needs to sort of come forward. And until the student sort of accepts this truth or this understanding and confronts and takes action, then there can't really necessarily be a new beginning for these two. But I do feel like the ball is in the student's hands here because I feel like the students has dropped the ball once too many, that they just couldn't sustain a connection here for a balanced union. So I do think the student will come to some understanding of some thing they're going to have to confront within themselves in order for them to come forward and deal with the guide, which I do feel is on the horizon here, but whatever pace this is at, I don't know. It might be very slow, but there's definitely disappointment here and a need for the student to sort of smooth out any sort of experiences that left the guide sort of up in the air, questioning what this was. And maybe still questioning what this is because there's a very strong intensity here. you know. And so I do feel with the Queen of Cups also in reverse here in this Venom energy and the Skunk, it could be that the guide is still upset or resentful or angry, because I do think the guide might have sacrificed something or feel a little bit tricked. It's like, I normally am shut, or I normally go about it this way. I gave the student a chance only to be empty-handed and now be bitter or angry about this, you know. I say bitter, angry, and the guide might not realize that inside they're upset about this fact, but there is this energy, and as long as they're sort of off-putting this energy, it's doesn't really, it's not very welcoming here. And so there's still more truth and clarity that needs to come to these two still, because I feel the lesson is still sort of fleshing out here, you know. So this is what I see, pile number 1. I hope this helped you, and I'll see you at the next one. All right, bye-bye. Hello, beautiful. Pile number 2, you guys picked the Devil card, you brave souls. I guess I probably should have covered this up. So we have Capricorn energy. Okay, this doesn't have to be your sign, your person's sign. Okay, but definitely the energy for the connection here is Devil energy. So like every card, there's light and there's shadow with every archetype. Okay, so we'll get into this. Let's lay the cards first, and we're looking at you versus the person on your mind. What's the biggest challenge, obstacle sort of in between both of you guys? Okay, and it's coming from like an objective look and potentially at how you guys might project onto each other, or certain perceptions you guys might have that might be challenging. Okay, coming from the objective sort of look at the connection overall. So let's take a look at A versus B and see what we see. Okay, so we have 95 with mystical union, growth level. It says divine knowledge, universal comprehension, intuitive knowledge, empathy, inner wisdom, transcended mind, feeling of connection. Number 5, type 5, the observer, thinking center between interior and exterior. And we have prostitute. It says light attributes, accentuates the challenge of surviving without negotiating the power of your spirit. Shadow attribute, places material considerations and security above self-empowerment. All right. And we have temporality with ego level 11, in the now, at this moment, right now, currently, today, right away, immediately. Number 2, type 2, the helper, emotional center between giving and receiving. Number 11, very spiritual here. And we have revenge, 74, disintegration stress level, requesting recognition, rejection of others, control, authoritarian, aggressiveness, becoming indispensable, 8 and 2. Type 2, the helper, emotional center between giving and receiving. Okay, and then we have the dead end, number 40. And we have 36 with Venus, Pluto. Let's do it like this. And we have yellowing with number 14. So we have some Libra, some Taurus, some Scorpio, some Sagittarius, and some Pisces. And we have 50, the truth. The truth. You cannot be truthful with another person unless you are first truthful and honest with yourself. The truth is not afraid of questions. All right. And we have the spider. And we have the golden egg. All right. And we have regret. The past cannot be changed, but the future is still in your hands. Remorse, sorrow, and rut. It's like, what is this street in French? Regret. Okay. Interesting. Let's take a look at person B. Yeah. What should we start with? Let's start with this. So we have Mercury, Mars, 22. 22 is a master number. Peacemaker, diplomacy, healthy energetic boundaries, and divinely guided relationships. Mercury is a ruling planet for Virgo, Gemini, and Mars is a ruling planet for Aries and Scorpio. So we have place and activity. Number 20, ego level, mutual aid, volunteering, association, helping out, support, assistance, community. Number 2, the type 2, the helper, emotional center between giving and receiving. And we have autism, mental tendency 59, stress level, turning inward, schizophrenia, isolation, distance, introversion, confinement. Type 5, the observer, thinking center between interior and exterior. It's interesting. I generally pull this card, and there's a million cards in that deck. And we have veil of ignorance, ego level 6, being safe and secure, need of the group, pessimism, fear, doubt, obedience, excessive loyalty. Type 6, the loyalist, thinking center between mistrust and trust. Interesting. We have community here. And we have need of the group, assistance, community. Okay. And we have hedonist, light attributes, inspires creative energy to embrace the good things in life, celebrates the beauty in yourself. Shadow attributes, pursues pleasure to the detriment of health, indulges at the expense of others. Okay, and we have Anima Mundi, and this is 77? No, 78. Anima Mundi. Okay, and then we have Benevolent Guide, and this is 57. All right, and we have the card of 22, the Peacemaker. Look at that, 22. Okay, master number, Peacemaker, diplomacy, healthy energetic boundaries, and divinely guided relationships. So lots of Libra energy with this. It's time to make peace. You will get much further on your path through kind acts and words than you will forcing things or vengeance. Well, right beside the Benevolent Guide. Interesting. We have the White Tail. Oopsie, dropped my wand. Sorry about that. I'll have to pick that up. And we have the Fox, Earth Energy, Virgo, Taurus, Capricorn with the white tail as well here. And we have Rejection. Through the sting of being left out, we discover our own inner worth, denial, dismissal, and exclusion. Okay, I'm going to pick up the wand. A sec. Okay, I do want to see this golden egg quickly. Who's this golden egg here about? It says, message at the center of the heart, the unstruck sound. Within the golden egg lives a precious sound. Deep within the sound resides a message. The sound cannot be heard, nor the message discerned, until we retreat from the noise of modern day life. The magical essence of the golden egg needs warmth, quiet, and time to unfold. No rushing, pushing, or grasping. Find the place of deep and restful ease, perhaps through yoga nidra or meditation. If you do not yet have a meditation practice, take some time for introspection or contemplation. When the mind begins to settle and the breath is calm, ask the question that weighs heaviest on your heart, staying open to any response you hear. Engaging with the energy of the golden egg is an advanced practice. It requires becoming intimate with our very essence and comfortable with vulnerability. When a feeling of tenderness or gratitude arises from deep within you, know that you are well on your way. Your chest may swell like you're seeing an old friend that's been away for a long, long time. Listen to the message they've been waiting to tell you. All right. Interesting. Let me sit here with this energy and start to channel what this is about. Okay. Interesting energy, kind of soft energy here. Let's get into it. Now, I was going to call, I'm going to call person A, I don't want to call them the prostitute because it just doesn't seem, I don't call them the dead end person. I'm going to call them the golden egg, okay? And person B is going to be the hedonist. Okay, just so we can keep track. You'll have to know which side you're on, A or B. Okay, but you should be on one of these sides. Okay, and this, like I said, is coming through as a channel. Okay, I'm not going to change how I channel for anyone. Don't like it, unsubscribe. Don't care. Go away. Bye-bye. Why would I change for you? It makes no sense to me. Okay, so golden egg person. This person, I do feel, has been asleep for some time in fulfilling their life, most likely surrounded by material things, okay, and not reaching a state of fulfillment for some time. I don't know how long this person's been on that path, okay? Now, material things doesn't necessarily mean this person is money hungry or that they were living large by any means, but there was an absence here, an absence of truth. And what's this big old truth? The big old truth is divine knowledge, connection to spirit by connecting with another, to connect to this part of self. Okay, so I feel like these two have been brought together so that this golden egg person could really tap into a part of themselves that's been shut down for them to ascend, really, at the end of the day, and tap into spiritual, deep knowledge that's found within them, and to shift and change and to release things in their world that they've outgrown or are no longer providing them with the deep sense of satisfaction and happiness. This person reached the glass ceiling, whatever the glass ceiling was for them, you know, like chasing, I don't know, chasing whatever and never finding happiness sort of thing. It's like a very unfulfilled experience when we can't scratch the itch of satisfaction and deep sense of love. And the person, golden egg person here, might be somebody who, well, there's a few messages coming in here. There's definitely more for this golden egg person to do in this world, to create. But it can only be created once they tap into this more spiritual side of themselves that opens their creativity, that allows them to explore outside of this world that they've been living, that they might have thought was them, that was far from them, because it was at the expense of this other side of them. And so they're learning to be more in the present moment with what is divine. I do feel like this golden egg person might feel very comfortable in a world where they are a doer, where they could create outcome, know how things are going, and make decisions. So they might have had a good ability to attain certain things and make decisions. But again, it's like things in the material world. And so meeting the hedonist person here has shown this golden egg person that it doesn't matter how much control they think they have or material they think they have or how much success they could have. They can't change reality, and they are sort of feeling at the mercy and helpless here to reality. And the reality here is that they're having to really rediscover their side of spirituality in themselves, to really get to know themselves through most likely experiencing disappointment. And so they might feel as though with the hedonist here, it might not be getting anywhere, or it might be something that has been very slow to develop and manifest, so much so that maybe this golden egg person has given up or is feeling really sort of disappointed here. Because I do feel like this golden egg person wants to create and wants to build, because they come from a world that is very 3D, and building and seeing things kind of gives it meaning and value. But there's another side that's meaning and value that's sort of more mystical here, that this golden egg person is having to tap into. And so they might be experiencing intensity here in the 5D, especially with this devil. So I do feel like between the two of them, there's this very strong, obsessive pull towards each other, very, very strong and intense. And the divine is sort of doing this by design in order for the lessons to be experienced and learned, for the light and for the dark to come up to the surface, so that both of these two people can deal with their shadow and their light. So it feels very much like a twin flame sort of connection, or a mirrored connection. Could be karmic as well, whatever word you want to use. It doesn't really matter so much as the shadow and the light is being mirrored. And I feel like this connection has been very challenging because it's been very, very intense. But I do feel like the golden egg person has sort of felt maybe like the past version of them might have sold their soul, in some way. Those are very strong words. It's not sold the soul, but it's like it was soulless or empty or lifeless because it didn't have depth. And maybe there was a lot of not connecting and bonding with people on a deeper level. It's like people are just like a commodity or like a part of like existence in some way, but it's like not seeing them as God's children. There was a lot of like material eyes, and it was all based on sort of image and superficialness. Their life had a coat, a film of superficialness to it. But again, I'm not saying this person was hoity-toity or superficial in the way that maybe they were engaged, but their world was coated with a superficialness, and so this is what's being sort of stripped away in some way. So I feel like this golden egg person has had most likely a spiritual awakening, or had dark night of the soul, or has had to die onto self in order for there to be a new beginning of self that might be completely different than this golden egg person even recognizes, like a whole rebirth here of someone different. But this different energy that they're being born is like this golden egg, because I feel like it's a greater version of this person who's more tapped into the divine knowledge of spirituality and themselves, and a greater truth that can't be bought, and is like coming back to self. It's like an inner essence that we just know and connect to. And so there's this strength of authenticity that comes through once this person sheds what is materially not them, or that illusion again of who we think we need to be, or the show we need to put on in the matrix. So a lot of matrix living, a lot of image to upkeep, a lot of attaching to a story of who we think we are, and not really like being authentic to love and ourself and connecting in a deep, profound way. And so I do feel like, yeah, like in a past world, this golden egg person might have felt like just like another number, or like a clock puncher, and like just another cog in the wheel, thinking that that's the way we had to live. And it's like, no, it's like, you don't have to live this way. You can tap into spiritual divine blessings right here, right now, which takes a whole new perspective. And so I do feel like this golden egg has experienced a lot of disappointment, and is maybe realizing a lot of what they have experienced in the past was disconnected from a reality of who they could be. And there's like, like pushing this person to be their authentic self, to regrow into someone here who can create or develop something, because I do feel there's creator developer energy here that will be born once this person's more in line with their spirituality. Okay, and so I'm going to get into this hedonist, but I do need the washroom and some water, so I'm going to be right back. All right, let's get into it. So far, we're not kind of seeing the dynamic between these two just yet that's creating the challenge, but I have a feeling it might be visible once we get into person B, the hedonist here. I went to get a drink of water and I walked into the wall. Oh, and it hurt. So hurt very bad. I have a feeling person B is hurting themselves. I feel like nothing happens by coincidences in my reading, and that felt almost like self-induced injury. And we do have hedonist here. Okay, and the whitetail talks about the shedding of the antlers that create a lot of pain. And it's like, I think it's annual for the whitetail, where the antlers shed and they go through this process of pain. I feel like there's a physical pain here happening with the hedonist, but let's get into what this is about. So I feel like the hedonist is certainly in a world unto themselves here. I feel like it says here isolation, but at the same time we have this like community and this need for group. I feel like the hedonist pulls their validation from other people, and I don't necessarily feel like it could be like always positive, you know, because I do feel like any attention is better than no attention in some way. And so I do feel like this hedonist might be the type of person that really likes attention, really likes to engage in groups and people and like be seen and that sort of a thing. But then there's this like other side, which seems a little counterintuitive, counterproductive in some way, because this autism is all about turning inward and confinement. And so I do feel like there's a truth to this hedonist person that hasn't yet felt safe to come out and be approved and seen by their family, friends, or whatever, because they might hold this energy within them that says, I won't be liked, approved, or appreciated. So I do feel like this is a heavy energy of feeling things that make me feel better, but aren't really aligned with who I am authentically. And it's like, with this anima mundi, it almost feels too like a loud production. The more the merrier. So this could be somebody who has like a lot of friends, or like I just work a lot, or like there's lots happening, but there's really a coldness because there isn't really lots happening when it comes to this person being seen for who they are, like this by design. And it's like, doing this so I could be liked, doing this so I could be seen as the provider or the person here who has it together, or like can create this illusion of security and acceptance, even if I'm unhappy, even if I'm not seen for who I am, even if I can't speak some form of great truth here. And so it does create suffering. And I feel like this hedonist person is being guided by the divine to see the truest version of who they are, and that they don't have to sort of exist in worlds that they feel they need to upkeep in order to provide them the value that they think comes with other people's projections of them. So I do feel like there's this energy of like lack of self-confidence in the authentic self, because this person doesn't want to face rejection. And so they're actually rejecting themselves by not allowing their truest form to be seen. And so there's this like, what's the best way that I can engage with these people or in my world that I can benefit from here to sort of attain it all, or be seen like the all knower, all doer, all seer, all provider, something like this. For all of you guys, it's different, but the general energy is still here. And so it seems as though it's all about everybody else and keeping other people safe, or keeping everyone satisfied, or being the life of the party. So it seems like it's really sacrificing, selflessly, but it's actually the opposite, because it's not about selflessly sort of putting ourselves out there. It's about us not wanting to be rejected and having to find the acceptance and appreciation out of everything and everyone, instead of going within and connecting to that. And so there is like a mirroring in some capacity, because both of these people were disconnected from the core of who they are. And I do feel that person hedonist B could certainly not prioritize the golden egg person at all, because everything else seems shiny and better. People, parties, work, drugs, party, sex, drugs, rock and roll, whatever the thing is here, okay? Because I do feel like again, that's self-inflicted abuse coming through here, because it's like the more I work to the bone, like the more I suffer there, but it's like I'm proving that I'm like capable of upkeeping work, but it's like all you're doing is like wearing your body away, you know? Or like I party because I'm like the life of the party and everyone likes me, and so I'm upkeeping all these things, but it's like it's draining and it's taking a toll on me. Or another version is like I peacekeep with all of these people and I'm like doing this for the community. It's like, I don't know, whatever it is, it like paints me to be like the savior or the saint or the all provider or the secure person, but it's at the expense of my own happiness, really. I might not even agree with these people, or at least I might not be shown love by these people, but it's like I keep investing there more and more, and it's like creating damage. And I do feel like they're in cycles of that, you know? It's like really hard for this person to get out. And I feel like this devil now reflected back to this hedonist person, because I do feel like it's a mindset that they have that keeps them stuck in acting the way that they act and feeling really chained and stuck, like they have no choice or control out of that, because then their validation or their identity goes with it in some way. So that's the only thing that it makes them feel worthy. But it's also their prison. And it's like shutting out the golden egg person as well, because if the golden egg person, it doesn't matter what the golden egg person does here to this hedonist, because the hedonist is stuck on one challenged mindset about what shows them value in their world that they really believe is who they are and what's of value. Look, we have 2-2 and 2-2 here twice. I think I saw that, I'm not sure. Which is a master number. Okay, peacemaker, diplomacy, and healthy energetic boundaries and divinely guided relationships. I feel person hedonist lacks boundaries for sure, because I feel like they push everything sort of to the edge. Yeah, everything to the edge. It's everything. It's at like max. So it's like if they're like focused on work, it's like they work. If it's like party, it's like party to the max. If it's like drink, I drink to the max. If it's like, there's no balance here, I feel, which is needing balance, finding healthy boundaries. And I do feel like this person is being encouraged to speak a truth about asserting what they actually want for themselves. But it's like they might not really have a mind of their own, because it does seem to me like it's like what everyone else expects of me or wants of me or sees me is the me that's living. And now I feel like I'm to do, because I'm checking off those boxes, what people expected me to do and be. And it feels very painful over here. Like there is the similarity, because with the golden egg person, I feel like they just maybe weren't awake or didn't know better. They were sort of in the matrix here until they got awakened and are being reborn. Whereas I feel like the hedonist person here is like, they are being guided to see this, but I feel like there's like a glutton for pain. It's like I deserve to be isolated, or like I deserve the truest version of me to be isolated, even if there's a lot of people around. Like this person will always feel sort of like alone and misunderstood, because if their truest version of themselves that can be what's the word, vulnerable, and the truest version of them be out there in order for other people to criticize them if they could. It's like this person wouldn't put themselves out there. They don't want to be criticized. They want to be valued, and they'll be and behave in a certain way that they think is going to be that, and which is going to make people see them more value. It's really frustrating here. So I am getting that this hedonist is potentially someone who could be avoiding and running away from definitely themselves. And so, of course, they can't show up for this golden egg person. And I do feel it's really driven from the fear of rejection and the mental habitual ways that this hedonist person thinks, and then the treatment or the solution that they find to their ailment is to not be themselves and to fill it with more of the same that's creating this thing. So, yeah, that's the biggest challenge here, is really this hedonist person sort of still not themselves and still sort of trying to trick everyone into thinking who they are and upkeeping a charade. Whereas I think person golden egg has shed the false self, has reached some sort of state of can't go no more in the material matrix world. So there's like a truth that they're accepting of themselves, whereas I feel the hedonist is still sort of in a woe is me, no one understands me, but they're not actively saying that. It's shown by their action, because I don't think they fully understand or see this yet about themselves. And it's like they feel they need support. It's like this person doesn't feel strong enough on their own. So whatever they use as a crutch, it's their strength. You know, they're giving their strength away to the whatever the thing is that they use as a crutch. Okay, Spirit, what am I missing here for pile number 2 in this dynamic? What is the biggest challenge here between pile 2 and their person that they came here about? What am I missing in regards to the biggest challenge between these two? 4 of Swords. So I need to slow down, reflect, and heal the 3 swords with the truth. So these two might be in periods of separation or just not feel bonded together because there's like this isolated energy, and it's coming really from this hedonist person. Yeah. So the main crux of this connection was a wake up to the truth of who this golden egg person is with the divine knowledge, and a wake up with this benevolent guide. Like I said, like the hedonist is being awoken to tap into who they authentically are. But unless we stop and reflect and become very honest, then we sort of keep the charade going. Ace of Cups in reverse, 6 of Cups. Why is this judgment here? Why is this judgment here in regards to the biggest challenge between pile 2 and their person? The Queen of Cups in reverse, Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces energy. Queen of Cups in reverse came out for pile number 1. Same with the Ace of Cups. We have the 2 swords in reverse, and we have the 3 of Swords, which I was really saying need to be healed through reflection. 9 Wands, and there's the Page of Pentacles. Okay. The Spirit is really talking about the awakening here. Okay, and an awakening happens when we see reality as it is, truth as it is, not how we want it to be. And then we make decisions based on that. I do feel like this golden egg person is more in the awakening process of knowing what's true and what's sort of not, by comparing it to the past version of who they are, by hitting some form of glass ceiling, like I said, or dead end in the world of the matrix. But I feel like both of these have had 3 swords that they've had to deal with. Now, 3 swords doesn't necessarily have to mean a divorce or like a romantic breakup, so much as it is a pain that we carry. It's a suffering that we have that we must reflect on in order for us to do shadow work and healing with honest truths. And so these two have this soul recognition here with this 6 of Cups to mirror this to each other, to wake each other up here, like a contract of sorts, like wake up and see who you truly are here. Because what this is going to do is allow them to love themselves from the inside so that they can fill their own cup. So they could have emotional new beginning truly from the heart space, not from this material fake world of who they're pretending or have been identified as. Because both these people identified as being characters in a play other than the reality of who they are. So I feel like both their hearts have been shut due to pain. Now they could experience childhood trauma, okay, or some experience in the past that has created this. And it could even go far back, like I always say, in a past life or a past experience or a childhood thing, divorce, feeling alone, or just how they were raised or how they understand themselves to be, so that they could use this as a protective thing for themselves. But really, it's like at an expense of being loved and experiencing love from the heart space. And so I do feel like these two could certainly be at a stalemate or have been at a stalemate, because I do feel like the hedonist hasn't fully awoken based on what the cards are showing here, that there is potential for these two once they're honest with themselves and once they understand how it is they could fill their own cup and open their heart space. And I do feel like the hedonist might be very guarded, but I don't feel like the hedonist has given up on this connection, because there's a knowing and there's a not giving up energy here. Okay, because I do feel like the hedonist knows pain and is used to pain and thinks that they need to suffer in pain, is like a glutton for pain. But it could be very tricky here, because I do feel like this golden egg might feel like they're not really dealing with the truth of who the hedonist is. And it's like, but the hedonist is sort of here guarded, but also not giving up in some way here. So there's this like wanting to still be around for this connection, not knowing why. And why is because the intensity and this need to listen to the greater power here with benevolent guide that's still trying to wake this person up, the hedonist, to who they are, because they know something's off. They're still feeling isolated and distant, no matter how much drugs, no matter how much sex, drugs, rock and roll, no matter how much people or work that they do. It's like, I never feel fully okay. And so they're going to experience burnout until they sit and reflect with the truth and become honest with this thing, you know. Then they can experience the potential here and go after this connection. But I feel like they're stalled or stopped. They're still guarded and still needs to embrace the truth. And I think this creates a lot of pain and suffering with these two, and might have experienced a separation. It's like we can't explore this potential because all we've experienced here is pain. And Spirit is talking about why there's pain is because the image of who these two used to be are not the true versions of them. And so when these two are to come together, it should be based on the truest version of them, that the true souls are coming together and connecting, reuniting, not the material version or the one who wants to upkeep image or is still not connected to filling their own cup because they don't want to experience any form of rejection and want to be approved and accepted and try to peacekeep. Yeah, so I do feel like this has been a long process in which the beginning still hasn't really yet happened here for these two. It's like investing in this connection in some way that's been very challenging and taxing with this devil energy. But I don't feel like these two have given up, because I do feel like there's some unspoken divine thing that's still rolling out here. And it could be amidst this wake up, you know, that these two can finally sort of come together or see the light or finally open up the heart space and trust each other to love and give love and receive love. But I feel like as long as one person is sort of not their authentic self, then there's a block to love. And I do feel it's this hedonist, because I do feel like there's still suffering here. And unfortunately, this golden egg experiences suffering as a result of being this collateral damage. So I do feel like these two could, like I said, be in a separation here, but it does talk about reunion. It does talk about potential. It talks about the energy and the effort that has been put into this connection, and that there's this fighter warrior type energy of not giving up on this connection, you know, because I do feel it is very spiritual. It is very intense, and it's providing a divine purpose of waking up, and who knows where it's going to go after that. But I do feel like it's supposed to serve this wake-up potential for both of these people so that they can really, at the end of the day, connect to their own heart and be able to give love openly and receive love here from an authentic place. So this is what I have for you guys. Pile number 2. I hope this helped you. I'll see you at the next one. All right, bye-bye. Hello, gorgeous angels. Pile number 3. You guys pick the Chariot. Awesome. Let's get into your reading. We're looking at you versus the person on your mind. This could be anyone at all. Okay. And we're looking at the biggest challenge between these two and the dynamic. Okay. Now it's coming from an objective look at the truth. So this might be something that might be difficult if you're doing a lot of projection or a lot of, maybe your own perception might not be in line with truth and reality. Then this might be difficult for you to tell. Okay, so I do ask you to use your intuition, which you'll see, feel, or hear to determine whether this is your pile or not. But you should resonate with one side sounding like your energy, okay, coming from the objective truth. You could either be person A or person B. And I'll lay these cards out and then we'll see, okay, what the biggest sort of challenge is here between these two. So we have the Exorcist, light attribute, freeing yourself and others of destructive impulses. Shadow attribute, fear of facing your own demons. Okay, and then we have character 8, ego level, the man, consultant, partner, lover, male, husband, companion. Type 8, the challenger, instinctive center between strength and weakness. Interesting. And then we have number 3, compulsion, ideal, ego level, success. Accomplishment, prosperity, fame, glory, victory, achievement. Type 3, the achiever, emotional center between appearance and authenticity. Okay, and then we have the empty room, number 42, or the number 6. And we have Mercury and Uranus, 26. Or the number 8. Okay, Mercury and Uranus. How'd you get Mercury and Uranus? Oh my goodness. Okay, Mercury is the ruling planet for Gemini, Virgo. Uranus is the ruling planet for Aquarius. Okay, and then we have Ash, number 33. Wow, 33 is a master number. Reproduction, creativity, humor, Christ consciousness, joy, and harmony. So I have 3 here, 3 threes with Ash. So we do have Taurus, Libra, Leo, Virgo, Gemini, and Aquarius energy here. And this Chariot is Cancer energy. Okay, doesn't have to be you or your person's sun sign, but is pulling through here for shared energy. We have 13, the ruler. So Scorpio energy pulling through. It says, sometimes you must create and defend boundaries to protect yourself from the invasive or other inappropriate behavior of others. Okay, and then we have the Cub. And then we have the Cheetah. Wow, fire energy, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, some Earth as well, Virgo, Taurus, Capricorn. We have obscurity. In the unknown, there's room for endless possibilities, darkness, ambiguity, and mystery. And finally, we have 33. Look at that, you guys. 33, 3, 33. Quest for answers, ego level, stability, legitimacy of authority, security concepts, self-confidence, loyalty concept, mental calming, and finding support. Type 6, the loyalist, thinking center between mistrust and trust. Wow. Wow. All right, let's take a look at person B. Okay. We have the engineer, light attributes, ability to give creative energy a practical expression, talent for designing resolution to common dilemmas, shadow attribute, reliance on mechanistic solutions without regard for emotional consequences. And we have Venus, 29, or the number 11. Okay, and then we have 55. Wow, there's so many like repeat numbers here. So 55 is a master number. Change is the only constant, divinely orchestrated change. Fundamental injury, stress level, shame, embarrassment, repentance, indignity, scruples, discomfort, feeling of inferiority. Number 1, type 1, the perfectionist, instinctive center between control and letting go. Okay, and then we have 101, essence, growth level. Number 2, freedom, liberated, artistic creativity, independence, free will, autonomy, emancipation, open self-expression. Type 2, the helper, emotional center between giving and receiving. And we have agape, number 72, or the number 9. And we have summer, number 18. Okay. And then we have the resolute with number 17. So some Aquarius energy. If you do not resolve to be patient and endure tough times, success may appear to you to always be in the future or in another's power. Okay, and then we have the salamander. So fire, air, energy, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius energy coming through. And we have the vulture, air energy, Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. Wow. The vulture. And then we have dependency. Find strength in self-sufficiency and empowerment. Reliance, neediness, and addiction. Okay, and then we have 60, egos, pitfall, stress level, confusion, mistrust and skepticism, difficulty, disengaging, fatalism, anguish and anxiety, search for evidence, need for guarantees. Number 6, type 6, the loyals, thinking center between mistrust and trust. Okay, wow, this energy feels really all over the place for me right now. So let me sit here with this and tap into what I need to see before I begin to channel. Okay. All right, let's start with person A, which I'll call the exorcist person. Okay, it's just to keep them sort of straight. And then I'll call person B the engineer. Okay, so you'll either resonate with the exorcist or the engineer, one of these. Okay, it doesn't matter which one. If not, then it's most likely not your connection or your pile. Okay, so if I start saying you and them, it's because that's how the channeling comes, and I'm not trying to confuse anyone here. Okay, so let's start with the exorcist person. This to me feels like somebody who is already sort of experienced at something already established here. Probably has already had success, a marriage or something like this, you know, that it's like, I just heard resting on our laurels. Is that how you say it, Spirit? Yeah, resting on our laurels, because I feel like this person was at the top of their pinnacle, according to them, and this understanding. Okay, but it's like there's two energies here. Either this person has gone through divorces or is not wanting to accept that their pinnacle or the point, the peak of their success or their happiness or whatever is now shifting into something else. And so this seems to me like somebody who isn't accepting a form of change and truth in their world in order for them to be happy. So they're choosing, I'm using strong words, okay, because this is how it's coming through as a channel, but it's like choosing misery and coldness and not much happening here, because at one point there were things happening here. And so It's like how cold and how barren and how empty do they need to sit, in the emptiness here in order to prove something here? Because I do feel like the belief that this person has is an idea or understanding of who they have to be in order for them to be successful, in order for them to be accomplished, in order for them to do the right thing that they feel is a duty or obligation for them to be and do here. But really, it's a form of, it's like masking up a fear, because the fear would mean that this person would have to maybe be honest with themselves and relearn or enter into a new phase where they might feel defenseless. And it's like, no, because if we've been always the top of the game, like the man, the provider, the CEO, the person in charge, whatever the energy here is of the boss man sort of energy. And then it's like we have to start from the ground up. We might feel out of our element and vulnerable, and we don't like that. And so we'll just sort of stay with the drowning ship, even at the expense of us being sort of not very happy here, because I feel like this person is not wanting to experience the unknown of change that would put them out of their element here. So they do find a sense of sort of stability from that in which they've created. But I do feel like there's more weight put into that. And that's like, it's not enough for them, but it provides some form of security and maybe at one point it was very fruitful, potentially, but I feel like they're feeding what they think prosperity looks like, but I feel like this person is still feeding the past relationship, the past version of them who had a life that seemed abundant in some capacity in their eyes. And even if it wasn't abundant, it was like, that's the world that they know, that they attribute to the core of who they are. So I do feel like maybe they're surrounded by, for some of you guys, this might be a thing. It's like surrounded by the old people, family, or friends that knew them from that world. And it's like, I don't want these people to see me different or like as the struggling person or the person that's lacking, because I've always been in the eyes of everyone like this, the person that was successful or the provider or the person here who had that story. It's really a story, I feel, that this person experienced of once upon a time. And now this once upon a time story is who they're identified as. They really truly feel and think that that's them. And so now everything that they kind of do now is of the eyes of that person, because that's who they think they are. And it's like, well, this new world might have nothing to do with old parts of their old self, but they can't differentiate between the two, because I feel like that version of who they are for whatever reason is no longer required. Even if that structure still exists, they are being guided or they've changed, but they're not wanting to accept and acknowledge this thing. And for some of you guys, like I said, it's already a failed marriage or something that is no longer standing here, but it's like, I'm still in that world. And in their mind, they still think they're that person. It's like, well, you're not in that relationship no more. You're no longer like the CEO there. You're no longer in that setup. But it's like, to them, it's like, no. It's like they're where they had power. There's where they sort of were able to navigate and have control and feel like free, because it's understood to them. That's all it really is, not because maybe it was so wonderful, loving, and giving. It's like it puffed them up. It gave them validity. It made them understand themselves. And for a lot of you guys, it's like, I was the husband, that's the sort of energy that's coming through here. I was the provider, or I was the support or the stability or the thing. And so as long as they hang on to that, because of the fear of the unknown and changing things up, they are experiencing coldness. And I feel like this coldness is in regards to a warmth of another. And so maybe this is where person B, this engineer person, comes in, because I do feel like there's maybe them wanting to sit in this coldness and thinking that that is where they deserve to sit at the expense of engaging or moving towards the present to expand and build a new future, which they're being called to build a new future, and that they can find stability, but maybe they don't feel a future could be stable, or that they would be experienced enough to go through the rigmarole again, or there's this like, I don't want to be vulnerable. I don't want to be caught with my pants down. I don't want to not succeed. And at least here it's like I have, successes. Even if it's not successful now, it's like I might as well quit while I'm on top. Again, resting on laurels. It's like, well, no, your life doesn't stop now. That's your partner died or your business collapsed or you had a divorce. It's like, I don't know, this person has their brakes on and is living in that glory. That's what it really, really seems like. Live in the glory, but every day when they look around, it's like empty and cold and lost. So they're in some form of in denial here, and they're being asked to integrate parts of self that they're shutting out because of this says fear of facing your own demons, which is really the part of self that wants to experience this new phase and be accepted as a child would, from like a novice state to experience. But there's too much fear in being novice, it's like, no. And so this could be an ego thing where it's like, I will not be a novice. I will not. I've already built myself up. It is sort of where it's at. I won't give up that image of myself that I had. Okay, so let's move on to person B here. This energy, let me just keep tapping in. Hang on, because this is giving all sorts of energy here that I'm not quite sure I even understand. So it seems like person B is a little bit all over the place, if I have to be honest, And it could be the snapshot of energy that I'm really tapped into here. If person B is sort of going through a shift right now, and maybe this is why it looks this way, but I'm going to start to channel a bunch. And I don't know if it's the collective that's tapped into here. Okay, so don't take every single thing that I'm talking about. I'll try to talk about the main things that are coming up here for this energy. I feel like there's a battle within this person of acceptance and acceptance of who they are. Because I do feel like this person does have a lot of mind stories where it's like they understand certain things that are logical. There goes my email confirming. So that must be true for person B, this engineer person, for all of you guys, where there's a mind identified understanding. Okay. And this could be the cause of a lot of problems, because if our mind has one understanding or several that might be untrue and disjointed from reality, it creates suffering here. So I do feel like there's a lot of stories, narrations that come through person B, engineer's mind. And I do feel like a lot is tied to superficialness. There's like a lot of what they think is successful, or what they think is going to be appreciated and loved, what they think is, like, for example, this is just an example, okay? It's like, in order for me to be loved, I have to be beautiful and fun. Okay, but that's just like a story that they came up with. Like, maybe they just have to be loving and caring, but it's like, whatever story they have in their mind, they're believing it to be true, and it's creating a disconnect from how they're feeling. Because I do feel like this person isn't experiencing acceptance because they're shunning themselves in some way here, because they might be trying to live up to a standard that doesn't necessarily exist, but it's in their mind. And it's like, I'm lacking this, or I'm not that, or so it's almost like, I think it's being reflected potentially by the exorcist person back to this engineer, because I do feel there's like a feeling a little bit of rejection here, but then also maybe putting it on an understanding that the engineer has about themselves. And it's like this engineer person is being called to get closer to themselves outside of their mind so that they can experience the good, the bad, the ugly, and all of who they are here, in order for them to understand who they are and value all aspects of themselves. And I do feel like this engineer person is like, always kicks it back to, if I don't see it or understand in this way, it like becomes a reality for the engineer, so much so that it really impacts their mood and their energy. And spirit's coming through here, like talking about this engineer person actually is only experiencing what they think is a true reality. And so if they're talking down about themselves or have a poor experience and they stick to that understanding, it's like they're perpetuating a state of suffering here. I do feel like person B, this engineer person, is really being called to be comfortable in their own skin, because I do feel like they outsource their, again, like their value based on what they see other people say to them or what other people do to them. And it's like they should be liberated and free being themselves, despite what they might think they have to be or know. And so I feel like there might be a lot of confusion around the dynamic between the exorcist and this engineer, because I do feel like person B wants some form of confirmation here, a validation, and feel like their happiness can just go based on whether people are accepting them or not accepting them, or whether they approve of them or not, or how much people give to them or not. And so I do feel like person B might be dealing with scraps, or feeling like on the outs, or feeling like they're breadcrumbed, or they're like not appreciated, they're not valued, and but they're giving away their power, and that's the thing they don't really realize here. So we already saw the challenge with the exorcist, which is really living in some past bubble of who they think they still are. And with the engineer here, the problem here is that they're most likely, and this is more of a guess here because I don't see it, but we'll do the tarot, is like the engineer feels like the exorcist, who isn't validating or acknowledging or engaged with the engineer in a way here that would make this engineer feel seen and loved and appreciated, is valuing this engineer as less than. But I do feel like the engineer wants to experience happiness and joy. I mean, who doesn't? And I do feel like this engineer person is full of passion. But they're being called to transmute this ego, which is really the mind ego, because I feel like their understanding was planted from some conditioning or some belief system that's creating this discomfort. And so there is a lot of dependency when it comes to what another person is going to say and think of me. And it could just be in connection, because this person might be like, oh, I don't really care what people think. But then when it comes to this connection specifically, there's a dependency on how much can this exorcist person provide and validate and support and be the cause of my happiness here. When spirit is saying the engineer is going to be the creator of their own happiness, that the freedom comes from them knowing that they have the power here to love themselves and detach from any sort of programmed thought that tells them that they're only loved if they're being shown, or if they feel like whatever boxes that they have, because I feel like there's an understanding of like what love means, or what it means to be in a dynamic that's really ingrained in this person's thought. And Spirit's like, there's something greater yet. And there is this need to connect from something outside of the mind. The mind is such a small little part. And knowing when we're in the mind, and knowing when we're out of the mind, and knowing when we're connected to Spirit, and knowing when we're connected to the greater essence of who we actually are, has absolutely nothing to do with how someone's validating, or whether they think we look good or are behaving in a certain way. So I feel the engineer also might be somebody who tries to win people over by the more they know, or the better they look, or the more they give. So I do feel the engineer is a giver, but it's like giving to receive, not just giving from the sake of being abundant to give. And so they'll forever feel disappointed or let down, because if this exorcist doesn't step up, because again, they're stuck here. Okay, now they're stuck. They could move if they wanted to, but they got to learn something here. And it's like, if this engineer feels not appreciated or seen or validated or whatever, it's like they want to give more, be of more value. So they'll keep ramping up their value, ramping it up. It's like they're trying to prove to be something joyous, something fun, something more. And it's like, but inside, it's like the more they have to ramp up, it's like, I'm not good enough. I feel less than. I'm still not getting fulfilled. I'm still getting scraps. I'm still not seen. I'm still not appreciated. My happiness is at the mercy of other people. And yes, because they're giving away their power. And so they're needing to really not be dependent on how other people show up or what they think of them, by getting out of their own mind. Because I do see that this person is very passionate, very fiery, and there's beautiful things about this person. They're fun to be around. They're joyous. They're passionate, like I said, and there's a great strength of spirit here. I think they know this. And they're also very intelligent, because I do feel like there's a lot of knowledge. But it's like, because of all of this, it doesn't necessarily mean that anyone and everyone is going to buy it or appreciate them or value them. Not because they're not valuable, but because that's the dynamic. And so I think they happened to, stumble across this exorcist that's mirroring this to them. And they might be really up in their mind about this, and doubling down on how much they can invest and give, and create all sorts of stories as to, maybe this will look better. Maybe then I'll be seen as like, beneficial or valuable. Because I think they really, really want to buy the love or the value here, and they don't need to buy anything. So there's confusion potentially with this engineer as to why this exorcist is not finding them valuable, is not doing the thing here, and is only giving them maybe scraps or, yeah. So let's take a look. Spirit for pile number 3. What am I missing here for these two? Because Chariots is all about success and winning with the universe. And I feel like the universe is trying to allow these people to have success, but they're trying to be doers. And I feel there's a resistance and going against reality. The Chariot wants to move and saying, find balance in self. Oh, this candle went out. I don't know when. Find balance in self by working with the universe, not trying to work against the universe. And I feel like both of these are sort of working against. So I'd say the biggest challenge between these two is their resistance and accepting what is naturally in front of them, and trying to force change and outcome to be different and more aligned with what they think it would make them more happy or feel more comfortable. Meanwhile, it's like, no, the universe knows better. Let it move you towards something else. Like, I feel the engineer just keeps investing more, or like trying to win over this exorcist person, putting up with imbalances and scraps. Meanwhile, they don't have to. But I feel like they're sort of stuck in that energy until they're like, I want to be validated, and I got to prove to myself that I'm worthy here. And that's going to overcome my shame and my deep-rooted shadow. Rather than resolving this deep-rooted shadow within themselves, it doesn't require someone else to heal it. but it would require the engineer to see it within themselves and deal with it within themselves. So let's take a look. Spirit, for pile number 3, what am I missing here in regards to the biggest challenge between pile 3 and their person? What's the biggest challenge? What am I missing here for pile 3, Spirit? Clear and concise message for the greatest and highest good of pile 3. Yeah, rejection, unrequited love. I feel the engineer feels rejected because the exorcist is still tied and married to the past. 2 cups, 3 of swords in reverse, Ace of cups. Ace of cups came out for pile 1 and 2. The 2 of cups came out for pile 1, I believe, and the 3 swords came out for pile 2. 8 pentacles. Oopsie, what's under that? The Knight of Swords and the 3 pentacles in reverse, and the 5 swords in reverse. Okay. And what's under 4 cups? Yeah, the 9 swords. So let me channel this. Okay. I'm really feeling exorcist sort of being really removed here, okay? And there's nothing that the engineer can do or say at this time. They're not going to win over or wake up the exorcist suddenly. There's definitely an ability here for these two to come together at some point. And I think the engineer might know this already and see it because they're not as sort of deluded or like still living in past. Okay, although they do need to resolve shadow, which is this shame and this not feeling worthy enough, and someone else is going to show it to me and I'm dependent on that coming forward. Okay, but I feel like the exorcist person hasn't healed, and I do feel it is from a past relationship of sorts, because I do feel like we got to go through a process of acceptance and understanding of loss. And so if the exorcist never went through the steps of the loss and the grieving, there's a block here to a new beginning in love and working together to create something. So I feel as though the divine is talking about these two people having to face their own individual thing before they are capable of having a balanced give and take. Engineer person is having to fill their own cup so that they know what it's like to fill their own cup. So they never need another person to be dependent on giving them scraps or breadcrumbs or making them feel in any sort of way. They have to work on this. This is shadow integration. Okay, consistently work on that so that they can be in an energy to build something in the future with someone else. Until they understand self-worth, self-value, self-love, and fill their own cup, they're not in a position to have a 2 cups. This is why this connection is being withheld. Now, is person exorcist capable of having a 2 cups? Not yet, because they have to deal with their 3 swords. So neither person's able to give a 2 cup here. And I feel like the engineer feels rejected, feels not seen. And I feel like there's a lot of anxiety here about this, that they're taking it personal. And then they're confronting potentially this challenge as it being between the two. Like, this person can't provide me with this, and we can't, we. And it's like, no, it's not about the we's, it's all about the I's. So never mind the dependency on what's going on with the exorcist. We already know they're all fucked up, and so I feel like the engineer might have had to learn the hard way, because I do feel like the engineer felt betrayed or felt like what they were feeling, like they could second guess, like, was it real? Is there love there? Is there emotions here? And it's like, yes, but it doesn't matter how much the exorcist felt for the engineer. There's pain here that they've been shoving down, that they're needing to deal with. The loss of something. They haven't accepted the loss of something, a divorce, a fall of the empire is all that I know. So the fall of the empire needs to be understood, integrated, accepted. And now the exorcist can come forward with the 2 of cups because they've accepted who they are. And this as not being a failure, but an experience to life. But they haven't. And the engineer needs to accept themselves and not see, this exorcist as like turning down their love as like a reflection of their value. And so I feel like this engineer is still sort of pointing their nose towards this connection. And it's not helping this thing. It's creating more anxiety. And like I said, it's all about the mind, because the swords of the 9 swords, this is like we're totally anticipating the worst, thinking the worst, creating monsters from our mind of what we think, and we totally marry to those stories and we think they're true. I'm not this, I'm not that, it needs to be this, it's because of that. It's like, who says? That's all in our mind. So this engineer person is living a nightmare thinking it's reality, and it's not. It's not reality at all. And so it's creating this conflict. Yeah, so things are stuck, and maybe these two are like not communicating. And why they're not communicating is because Exorcist does not see this, and they're not going to say, I'm still hung up on my fallen empire. They don't see it that way. They don't want to admit it was fallen, and they still think they're in that energy. And the engineer is not going to come and say, why aren't I beautiful or smart enough for you? I feel I know everything, or I'm beautiful, or I'm of value, but you're not seeing the value here because they can't understand the language in which they're speaking. They're in 2 different worlds. So things are stopped and stuck. But Spirit is talking about there being mutual feelings and there being a potential for a new beginning. Once the reality sort of is hit with both of these two, so that they can see the truths of themselves, then things will start to flow. Okay, but things only flow when we sort of pay attention to what's in front of us and not what was missed or what we don't have. And because the exorcist is looking at what went away and in that world of the past, and the engineer is looking at what's not happening between them and the exorcist, and so they're feeling rejected. It's like looking at everything but what's here right now. And I think that that's what they're being called to do. Deal with the right here, right now, in order to have success and move. Can these two have success? Absolutely. But I feel like both of these people are having to deal with their shadow and become sort of honest with the reality rather than the illusion of the mind or the illusion of the past experience that we think is the reality. And it's not. Okay. So this is what I have, pile number 3. I hope this helped you guys. I love you guys very much. And I will see you at the next one. Bye-bye.